There are a lot fewer two-parent families.
What's worth more, a dollar today or a dollar tomorrow?
Almost nobody gets out of love alive.
Prisoners' rights is out of sight, out of mind.
Is your brain on God?
You ain't ready to
There
oppose
are discussions
How
as
they
a
thought
black family, we have to have them.
What's worth more, a dollar today or a dollar tomorrow? What's worth more, a dollar today or a dollar tomorrow?
Well, the question I was going to ask, because I tried to state it before that I'm not necessarily a person that's against abortion.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering what if we're talking about Black people's condition being worse in America, what is it about abortion that makes it worse for our condition overall?
What is it about abortion that makes it worse? Well, okay, I'm just gonna represent my ideology. If I'm looking at America as, there's a genocidal war against Black people, I look at abortion as, damn, you know what I'm saying? We're actually contributing to what they want from us. They want less of us around. They don't want more of us to be born. They don't want more soldiers out here for us. They don't want the next Malcolm, the next Marcus Garvey, the next Martin Luther King to be born. So what better way to stop, a group that you're trying to decrease than, teaching them to do it themselves
Mhm.
through an avenue of sex.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's the answer. I'm wondering how you feel about that.
And only because me and Ye talked this before, and I know we touched on it a little bit. So I'm trying to structure it. Like my thing is, I think when we talk about the experience of America and Black people in America, and you think about like maybe the mass incarceration system and the educational system and all these other systems where we are bad in, right? And we talk about when we bringing new kids into the world, we're bringing them into the system, right? Like even when you talk about genocide, I automatically think about law enforcement and mass incarceration automatically. Like when we talk about people like maybe Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, the thing about those people that I think made them is not necessarily the fact that just they birth, it's the experience that they were in. Being like Martin Luther King, his mom was an activist. Malcolm, even though his parents wasn't activists, like I remember watching a documentary and his brothers and sisters, and they were all talking about they were still taught to be strong Black people and to be independent. So when the time came that he was ready to actually do it, I kind of feel like with abortion, if people are in a bad situation, and they're not able to take a kid, and they're going to put a kid into the system, which might possibly end up in the foster care system. I think there was, going back to statistics a little bit, they're saying that almost like 80 something percent of African Americans are going to run into some kind of incident with law enforcement, where that's part of, growing up Black in America. That I personally don't have a problem with abortion as a choice if you're in a bad situation. Me personally.
Well, here's why my narrative continues to be that we're worse off now than ever before. Because going back to the example you used in another conversation, why aren't we teaching our women that there are alternatives to abortion? We can put up babies for adoption. We can use certain types of contraceptives or whatnot.
Yeah.
Seems like a lot, and I'm not saying it's all women, but a lot of our sisters are jumping to that choice of abortion. And going back to someone like Malcolm X, again, what if he would have been aborted? What if Martin would have been?
So this is how I think about it, because I think that again that goes back to experience, because when originally you brought that up to me like a long time ago, and you brought up Martin Luther King, and I thought about Martin Luther King. For some reason, I automatically linked him to Gandhi because that was somebody who pretty much he followed a lot of his ideologies, and he used that for his own little warfare against America. But I also thought about Gandhi because he's Indian, and Indian has a high population, right? Just off of that, right? India, who has a high just the probability of it. Basically, you have this country that has a whole bunch of people, but you can only really have one Gandhi that you could talk about, right? You don't have all these other Gandhis within, and not saying that it's not activists because there's activists here. But when we talk about a specific person, that person to me now becomes an exception, right? You have this high population, but you don't have that many Gandhis. So to say to me that if you have more of a population that is going to create another Martin Luther King and a Malcolm X, the probability is not there for me. The probability that makes it actually happen is the education. So like you talk about with the contraception, I'm there with you. When you talk about teaching people other ways, I'm there with you, and I think that's where it starts at. Like I think if all of that was better off, we wouldn't even be talking about abortion. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that wouldn't even be a thing. But if we're in a situation where we are now, if that is somebody's say, because even when we talk about adoption, having people that I know that's in a foster care system and having to go through the foster care system myself, that's not a place kids want to be. It's
Yeah.
really not. It's not set up for kids to prosper. And a lot of times they end up in a worse situation. So, there's a lot of things that is against putting a kid in the system, especially if you're not stable enough to put them in that system. And that's the only reason I'm not completely against it. But I do agree that we need to create a better system overall to get our people into a better place.
It's
Yeah.
always been incredible to me, to think that people think like that, like kind of think that far ahead, when it comes to like children. Like specifically, what I mean by that is like when my wife was first pregnant, with our first son, I didn't think about um, college. I didn't think about stuff. I was really thinking about what was going on right then, like how I'm gonna feed this cat, how I'm gonna clothe this cat. So the weird thing about it is to say like to make a decision about not bringing a child into this world because of like some of these other outside things you said, what you say, mass incarceration or police contact and stuff. That
Yeah.
it's just weird. Like that's not the first thing that comes to my mind. You know what
But
I'm saying?
I say that in a whole. But like even like you saying like how to feed the child, I think is something that comes into play as well. Something small like that. Like if you are a teenage girl who is still in high school, and maybe your mom is a single mother who's not doing economically well as all, that might come into play as well, where you make that decision like, I don't know if I could feed this child. So I use
The
those
create the
bigger.
creator made it so that women can feed their children. So I don't know what you mean by that specifically.
But I mean, eventually, what you're talking about when they're infants, but
Right,
they go out
because
of
again, like I said, I don't see how people are thinking about 10, 15, I mean, even 5 years down the line when you're right now dealing with a pregnancy. There's, it's just, if, and I'm just saying personally, it wasn't something that I didn't think about 5 years later. And if I did, it was in the, in the sense of like, yeah, I can't wait till to see him walk, or yeah, I would love to see him play football, but not worrying about like financially how am I going to be able to send him to college. And we're talking about she's 5 months pregnant right now. That's not something that came to mind. I'm not even going 5 years later. So th- that's why I say it that way. When when you find out a woman is, for me, when I found out my wife was pregnant, it was more about what was going on right then, immediately. Immediately. When I say feed, I mean like once he's here, what's the first thing that's going in his mouth or whatever? You understand what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. So I mean, I just find it interesting. I'm sorry. Just
No, I
I
mean
thought
it's,
I wanted
it's
to use this
interesting.
day.
I'm trying to see how to frame it because I have my own situation with it. Be honest, if I would have took it a different way, I probably would have. I put it like this: I've been with 3 women who were pregnant. I mean, I've been with 2 women who were pregnant. Once was pregnant twice.
Mm-hmm.
Two of them were aborted because she had to abort them. She couldn't have that baby without complications. And to be honest with you, one in hindsight, I probably would have, mainly because it wasn't a good situation. It wasn't a situation I thought about beforehand. Like you, I didn't think that far in the future. And I'm not saying people think that far in the future. Even if you say that, people are naturally able to feed a child through just a woman. Basically, you talking about breastfeeding. There are still other aspects to that where and I'm talking about not 5 years from now. I'm talking about right then and there. I'm talking about and we gotta. There's a lot of situations where I can't. I think it gets jumbled within this conversation because I can't say anybody's exact reasons, because like I think especially when you're younger, a lot of that stuff happens by accident. Like I know, I don't know if you was with your wife by the time your child got pregnant. I wasn't with my son's mom physically when my son got born. And to be honest with you, we were breaking up. The only reason we stayed even longer was because my son was being born. Um, where there's a lot of situations. There's quite a few situations where I'm saying that if people are in certain situations, that some people weigh out their situations and not just on the baby itself. Because to be honest with you, until the baby is there, you're not even thinking about the baby. You're thinking about your own situation. A lot of people are doing that for their own situation. So it might be for selfish reasons, but some of that might be survival wise. So I think a lot of that has to be taken into play. And for me personally, I'm saying when we talk about things about the black condition, because those black conditions, even though people might not visually think it, they're being affected by it. So if you're being affected by how bad your neighborhood is, even though you might not be able to visualize it or formalize that thought, you're still going to an everyday struggle where some of that stuff might play into your decision making.
Well, you know what. Just to go back to a point you pointed to earlier, this is why it's so important. Why the education part of it is so important. That we start to teach these young black boys and girls that when they come together, these are things that they need to be talking about. If they're gonna think and talk about sex, they need to be talking about the future. They need to be talking about a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 15 or 20-year plan, and not just thinking about right now. We went through a generation of this. So the next generation, we have to teach them better solutions to be full thinkers, so that we're not just in the now and we're not just scrambling on, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're pregnant now. You've been having sex 30, 40 times with this woman. You're going to get her pregnant if you're having unprotected sex. So,
Yeah.
but it's a learning process. I'm not judging anybody. It's
No,
going to
it
come from
it
the education.
it's at, and the planning part of it is I can't, I'm looking for the saying, but I can't even come up with it, so I'll just explain it in layman's terms. But we can have a plan, man, right? But once the shit gets going, you know what I'm saying? You may have to call an audible. You know what I'm saying? Things change, right? So, and that's if you have a plan. 9 times out of 10, these motherfuckers are not have a plan. I'm gonna be honest with you. Our first uh, pregnancy was planned, right? It was planned, and and that was more so because she was honest to talk to me about it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if let's, there's women like who may feel like they want children, but don't really know how a guy feels, and just may not say anything. And if they're unprotected, it's unprotected. If it happens, great. You know what I'm saying? But she was open enough to talk to me about it, so that's why I say it's planned, because we discussed it. And then um, we wind up becoming pregnant. But what about people who don't even go that far to even just discuss it? You know what I'm saying? And they just have a child. I can't see them thinking 5 years, 2 years. It's like right now, holy shit, what are we going to do? What are we going? And that's just a natural thing. You know what I'm saying? That's just a natural thing. um I don't know, man. I just It's to each his own, man. When I say um pro-choice, meaning like, you can go ahead and, choose to do what you do, and I'm not going to judge you. But as far as I'm concerned, it's just not something that I've ever embraced. Um,
But you know what? Yeah, let me throw this part in there. You know what? I'm not cool with the concept of to each his own.
mhm.
I want us to reach to a point to where we have group standards, to where we say these are the things that we do as a group, as a culture. These are the things that we do not do as a group, as a culture, and we do these things for the betterment of our group. We have to hold each other to a certain standard.
It's tough, man. As much as I agree with you, bro, I do. It's that it becomes difficult um, because it's so personal. It's such a
Yeah,
personal,
yeah, yeah,
personal choice, right? That opens up the argument to to all personal things, all personal choices. How do you just decide which personal choice is fucked up versus? And in my own
yeah,
life, there may be things that I do personally that can't nobody tell me. So you kind of is because it's a life involved is what makes it so sensitive, right?
yeah,
But I mean, you take the life out of it, then it's just a personal choice, and I wouldn't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Whatever your personal choices are, they are. I don't care. But you
yeah.
put the life, and that's what makes it
Mhm.
sensitive. But it's still at the end of the day, personal choice. One that I you know have never. I'm not a woman, but you know what I'm saying. Um, if I ever any woman that gets pregnant, then we're taking care of that child, and that's just what it is. You know what I mean? That's just me though. You know what I mean?
Let me let me point to another aspect of all of this and tell me what you guys think about this as well. And especially since you made the comment of it's a person's own personal choice. We've seen specifically through our lifetime what they like to call the fatherless era. Where some fathers just ran out on their families, some fathers were dealing with drugs. It was many different reasons that pulled these fathers out of black homes that really affected a lot of black families and was a trickle down effect to a lot of these black children.
Mhm.
What about the man that said, "Hey, that was my personal choice," and this is not an attack on you at all, G, but what about the dude that's just like, "Man, it's my personal choice. Yeah, I made them babies over there, but I ain't trying to raise them babies. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to be over here with it."
Again, um, it is a personal choice of his. As far as
Yeah,
I'm concerned, that's not something that I would support. I'm taking care of but am I would I call him, you know, label somebody like that, be judgmental and call him a deadbeat? Maybe, maybe, maybe you might you might
that's
you might hear me say something like that. But again, at the end of the day, it is his choice. It's fucked up as it may be. You got to allow for that because again, in your own personal life, there may be some things that you do that's it
yeah,
just really takes one person to not support it. You know what I'm saying? One person to not support something you do in your personal life, and then you become a hypocrite if you don't. You understand what I'm saying? I gotta allow for it as much as I don't support it.
And I kind of failed to get to a point like of which you're talking about, Anya, is a point where that the community itself, if they're going to make that kind of create that kind of ideology where we all have to move together to be together, that they also have to commit the physical resources to actually take care of that. Like just for a personal example, especially since you talk about the fatherless aspect to it, even though I was born in Jamaica, so it might be a little bit different culturally.
okay,
The fact is, like, I thought about this ever since we had Tashina on there. She talked about how in her island in Angola, that basically Antigua, that basically that the men sleep around and have babies with all these different families. And I realized that I could tell you who my mother is, I could tell you who my grandmother is, I could tell you who my great grandmother is. I met my father, but I've only really met him twice in my life. I don't know who my grandfather is. I don't know who my great grandfather is. So I thought about those three things, and I asked my mom. She has no idea who those people are as well. But so she had no male figure, no male parent that was in front of her. But luckily enough, she was able to have older brothers who was able to take that role for her. So she had this small community that was able to take that role that wasn't for them. So like, if we go back to the abortion part, if people are let's just say that they're making a decision because they think they're not financially set. If they are able to think that far ahead, if they are that kind of people, that if the community says no, you're gonna have that baby, then the community would have to actually make sure that person is set. So
I
when
like,
that baby needs something, they actually are able to do something for that baby. So there
yes,
is a lot of stuff that will have to be come into place to even say, this would be a better decision for you or not.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't know where, and I mean, where you're gonna find
I'm not
in
saying it
this country,
exists.
where you're gonna
This,
find
this
that
is
kind
a
of
thought
community. It'd
experiment.
be interesting. I would love to see that kind of community.
That is a straight thought experiment, Jay. That's not
Well,
something I say is real.
well, these are ideas that could possibly become a reality. I'm trying to have hope out here because I don't want to be the person that just says we have no hope at all. I could point to a lot of different aspects and say, damn, all of these aspects right here is why things are worse than ever before. But we always got to remember the type of people we come from. We come from a people that survived the worst. You know what I'm saying? We soldiers, we warriors out of this. You know what I'm saying? We done fought against it all and we still here. They don't want us to be here, but we here. So what we're gonna keep doing is try to figure this out, find solutions, and keep pushing forward for a better tomorrow.
Like I said,
Even when it's hard.
I don't believe it's hopeless. Like I said, when I can't remember what we were talking about, but Ian was on and we were talking about the whole back to Africa thing, right?
Yeah.
And I was saying how here, um, Ray was the one who first explained about the claim that we have here, right? The claim that descendants of slaves have in this country. But for me, um, there's a way of living that you can achieve, that everybody can achieve here. Everybody, there's a certain way of living here in this country that I admire, and everybody has an opportunity to get to that point, to live that way, um, and that's what I embrace. But it's through ownership. That's what I'm saying. Like it's not hopeless. In the solution that I go to is through the ownership part of it. And I'm not talking about this whole, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. That's not this type of a argument. But if you want to live comfortable, man, there's no reason that you can't do it here in this country. Like even in 2018, with everything that's here available to you. I spoke to you guys earlier today about that one situation, and that's just one institution in one city in this country. There's opportunities like that all over this country.
But let me just add this, G. That's kind of an area where I gotta be honest, I am kind of hopeless about speaking specifically on, me
Ownership.
individually. Well, no, no, no. Well, me individually setting myself in position to be financially independent and wealthy. You know, I care about, my people. I want to see more of my people on my level. I don't want to be the only one out there living that life and all of my people are struggling, or the majority of my people are struggling. I want to be in a neighborhood where I'm making big money and I live around people that look like me, with ideologies that are like mine, and I don't think this country is ready for that to happen. I don't think they're gonna allow that to happen here. I'm gonna be
I mean,
honest with you.
well, I'll say this. This is
Well,
okay. Here, go back to that that bubble thing I was talking about. My man, for instance, he how do I explain it, man? No. Let me just say this. In, let's say, Prince George's County, Maryland, there are some real affluent neighborhoods down there that would completely satisfy you if that's what you're looking for. You want to be around, your own people. You want to, be comfortable. You can find those communities in this country. But here's the thing. Say you come from a community where it's poverty stricken, right? And from the time you were young, you always wanted to do more. I don't call you wanted to be aspiring to be an activist or nothing, but you were always out there talking about, upliftment, what we could do, and ain't nobody fucking listening. Nobody's listening. So you continue to move on with your life and you start to get some personal achievements. You move up a notch here, a little level, and you go and you continue to start trying to tell the people in your community, listen, this is how it's working, man. We got to go ahead and do something. And nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. Um, Years go by, man. Let's say, now you out of that neighborhood because you done well for yourself. Um, got a couple dollars now, got a family, and you want to move somewhere else. There's nothing wrong with that, man. Especially if you continue to look back and reach back. As long as you can, you're on your path, you're moving, but you continue to look back. If motherfuckers are not jumping onto your wagon, man, it has nothing to do with you, man. You can't blame yourself. And I'm learning that. I'm learning that, honestly.
I kind of feel like even I mean the thing I would say that's good about ownership to a certain degree, like even in a situation that you're talking about, Jay, if people are not willing to hear your word, like say you come back and start a shop or a store in your own community, which now you can hire people. You know what I mean? Or now you could maybe offer services. Um, that's kind of probably what needs to be done. I think sometimes people need to see you being prosperous. They need to get the opportunity from you. So there is some stuff to ownership that you might have to do yourself in order to drag other people along or drag them up to a certain degree.
Hey, listen, man. I when I first I hate going back into this part of my life because it's like so over with. But when I first got into the government, man, um, I was like, man, listen, man, this might be the opportunity to kind of pull some, cats up. At that point, people are telling me this is the way you do it. Go into government and get your pensions and do your 25 years, get your pension, whatever. So I'm like, all right, so now I'm in here. Now I got some people around me and they're not doing too well. Yo, come fill out this application and put my name at the bottom and as a reference, and it should fast track you through this application process. Uh, no go. 10 fucking years, gentlemen. I was unable to get anyone that I know personally to fill out an application and put my name on the bottom, so they could fast track through the application process and
Mhm.
they can get hired. So,
Mhm.
I've been talking.
Yeah.
I've been showing, and I've been moving, and that's what I was saying to Anya. It comes a point where you start moving up notches and stuff, and you continue to
Well,
remind the people behind you that listen, it's
but I go to say it like this, and excuse me if I'm getting too personal, but I'm pretty sure you said it before. Like, but even with the business you have now with the janitorial service, you do bring people along with you, right?
mhm.
Like you do try to help them. So you still kind of doing it. You
Like I
might
said,
not be
I
doing it on the
always
same level.
it's like this. I don't even sound corny and shit, but it's like breathing. It's second nature. This is just what I do. I reach out. It's just what I do. You know what I'm saying? And even to some people feel like what's the part in mind labels me hero of the stupid. You know what I'm saying? Because I reach out to just anyone. Pretty much. Like if it seems like I can assist you in that moment. That's what I usually do. It's not something that is going to ever change. Really, I may kind of be a little more responsible about how I do it, because I've taken a lot of losses, as of recent, behind just loosely just reaching out. But I'm gonna always reach out. That's the whole point of it. You know what I'm saying? The whole point of this thing for me is, if all right, if y'all not strong enough, to take this haul right now, or you don't have enough vision, you don't play chess, and you're not used to thinking 3 or 4 moves ahead, then let me go ahead and let me get this journey started. Let me give you something for you to actually see. This is what I've been doing my whole life, bro. my whole life. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if you know if I put it like this. Um, if hopefully some of the stuff I've done, has influenced, inspired someone. I don't need anybody to come, thank me, pat me on the back. It could have just happened. You know what I'm saying? I just hope that, you know, um, I have inspired someone. I have, affected some change on some, individual. You know what I'm saying? With some of the stuff that I try to do. That's all it's about, man. That's all it's about for me. A simple life for me. Simple, 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 simple. Take care of my family, right? And like my man, my mentor of mine says, invest in people, and that's what I swear by it. He was the first one to tell me that too. Invest in people. I'd never heard it. I said, what the fuck does that mean? Invest in people. What do you mean by that? And he went into it, and it was interesting because at the same time that he's telling me invest in people, what is he doing? He's investing in me because he's actually having this conversation with me, and that's really what the lesson I took from that, man. So Dane, it's not gonna stop, man.
I mean,
I'm gonna
but
continue.
that's what I'm trying to think. Like, even though, to a certain degree, I think, that you do have to move individual because the way we so fractured that people are not going to jump along right away. Like there's always going to be that kind of people like, oh, he just talking, or people might be amped up for the moment. You know what I mean? They have that mob
That's it.
mentality, but
That's
then
it.
they lose it.
That's it.
They lose it.
And
You know what I
and
mean?
that's why I'm not so big on. I'm sorry to cut you, but that's why I'm not so big on. Maybe it was needed, in the day, but why I'm not so big on just supporting something because of pride. You know what I'm saying? Just because of pride, I it's got to be more to it than that, man. It's got to be.
Yeah, no, I mean, because to me, a lot of that process, you just get symbolic victories. You
Hmm.
don't get anything so big out of it
Right,
if you do get a victory at all.
right.
So we got to make concrete moves. But I think that probably goes back to something that Anya always say about structure. Like these individual moves, hopefully, is building a structure where people in general will be all better
Hmm. Hmm.
in the long
And,
run.
and
I mean,
let me just add this. Man, I hate that, when we gain this beautiful mentality that it actually puts us in a place to where we almost kind of isolated. Speaking specifically, if we really make it financially, in places that we end up living. Like you did give the example of those areas in Maryland, which I have researched those areas. But I'm even wondering, going back to the last episode, mentality, ideology. I'm wondering if I move to an area as such, am I going to run into like-minded mentalities over there? Because, like I said, ideologies and what we have latched on to separated so much. Am I going to move amongst blacks who mentality is, hey, money, money, money over blackness? Hey, money in college is what got me here. Am I amongst the black bourgeoisie that's like, hey, don't come over here with that red, black, and green flag. Don't come over here with that black talk. We don't want to hear that over here. You're in a different area. You want to talk about that? Go back to the ghetto with that.
Hmm. Well, I mean, unfortunately, man, the those are the choices, right? So you got, all right. Well, put it like this. So if you don't do that and you stay in the community um, of your own people, but in an area that's poverty stricken, that's what you said. Okay, in a poverty
No, no,
stricken.
no, no, no. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Mm,
Actually, Tupac spoke about this years ago. He said, "I was fucked up for a black man with money." He was like, "Man, you get money. You know what I'm saying? You kind of relate more to the peeps in the hood where you came
right.
from." But he was like, "You live around them no more because they wolves, they vultures, they ready to take from
You
you."
know,
But where does a rich black man go in this country where he can really sit comfortable and enjoy himself and be around people that's like him?
yeah, that's an interesting question, man. That is an interesting question. I mean,
Because the community ultimately is not just where you live, but it's where you build like-minded individuals, families, people that know each other, people that get
so
along.
can I
We're a
ask a
community.
question? Cause I remember way back. This is back when we had Cyrus. And I don't think we ever.
Shout out to Cyrus.
I'm not shouting him out, but I don't think we ever put this episode out. But there was one episode where, in the middle of the conversation, which I was kind of mentioning the idea about community and things we have to do within the community by building up the local structure. And I think one of the questions that was asked by him was, why is it bad if somebody makes money for them to move out their neighborhood? Which I don't think it is bad. If you get that money, move out your neighborhood, like you said, that might be a safety issue, because people might be looking at you jealously. But I also feel like you can still do both. Like if you're that person that is about the community, I don't think you necessarily have to live in the community to actually build a community up. Um, I think you can still maybe live in a more secure community for yourself and still do things to help your people. You know what I mean? Like there's still ways to be around like-minded people, not necessarily your neighborhood. You could have a safe area for your kids and at the same time still, go do some policy things or go march in that protest or whatever you want to do. Like it's still, I think, feasible.
I mean,
I don't think you have
I
to
think
be
it's.
in the hood.
I'm just going to reckon. I'm gonna just say I think it's the smart thing to do. I'm just going to go on record and say that. Where because we got to be honest about a couple things, man. You just mentioned, quoted the great late Tupac Shakur, right? There's wolves out there,
Mhm.
and these motherfuckers will resent you after a while. Boosie was on Vlad TV talking about hypnotized with hatred. That shit is real. It's real. So let's be smart about it, man. Let's be smart about it. You want to help the people who want to be helped in the community that you come from. The
Mhm.
smart thing to do if you put yourself in a position where you are, you put a distance between you and the majority of the people in the community, financially, the gap, the distance. Yeah, you get the fuck out of there, man, and you help them from a distance. Um,
Mhm.
and we're just gonna use, and it's crazy. I'm even gonna bring a rapper, even though you said Tupac, but just bring a rapper. They talk about rappers dying in their own city, right? Why? Why would that even make any fucking sense? This is someone who came from the same struggle, specific struggle that you came from, and you kill him? Like for what? For It's crazy. It's the smart thing to do, man.
But
How
but
do you
I don't
how
I
do you
don't
help
want.
your people if you ain't fucking here, man? How do you help them? If you and I mean here, I mean like on this earth. Like you get to a point where you can help somebody, but there's somebody who resents you and resents your success, and and would cause some real bodily harm to you, possibly kill you, take you off this earth. You can't help nobody then, man. I just think it's a smart thing to do. You ain't got a problem with me saying it, then it is what it is. That's the advice I would give to anyone. You put yourself in that position. If you truly want to help, do that from a distance, man. It's tough to do it there. It's tough to do it there.
But,
But I
but
don't need to be. I don't want to be no fucking martyr. You know what I'm saying? I don't. I'm not into all of that.
let me
I got two
let me
sons, man.
conversation. Let me flip it to ask: is it really even safe in a community around those who don't think like you? We've seen examples of what happened to LeBron out in Los Angeles, where they didn't try to kill him or nothing like that, but they wrote nigger on his gate. We've seen examples of down in Florida, the football player Sean Taylor, where they ran up in his house and he was shot in a rich, affluent area. We've seen examples of like, I forget the specific state, where that doctor was like arrested outside of his house for just losing his keys and trying to get into his house, and his neighbors calling the police on him. So it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you
Well,
don't.
no,
Well,
there's
Pick
a
a
even
different.
though,
Okay, I was gonna say there's a
yeah,
different threat level with
true.
those
I agree.
situations. I mean,
yeah,
yours
I would
when
say that too, John.
you get to that. position, well, hopefully you understand that, once you get to that position, you have those kinds of finances. Just like a security system on a house, you might want to put something around you as well. I'm not above personal security, especially if you're worth something. These what was his name? Taylor. Um, if I
Sean Taylor.
Yeah, I think that was yeah, he definitely didn't have no personal security, and I thought that was some street stuff involved with that. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't random. Is my point. You know, it wasn't a random situation. They Not from my understanding.
What
So
did happen in his affluent area that he lived in.
no. I mean, anybody, anything can happen to anybody anytime. What I'm saying is, when I was talking about specifically with these rappers is,
Yeah,
they're coming from this neighborhood. They came from, and nine times out of ten, these cats didn't even like, you know like go through school, complete school and stuff like that, right? They coming from this, so like meaning like they don't even have anything to fall back on. Not, I'm a college graduate, I got a degree, and now I want to be a rapper. No. This is really you. This is really you spitting what you really live, and you come from this specific struggle, and you kill them.
yeah.
But I want to say even with those examples y'all give, like when y'all talking about that kind of money, I kind of feel like that's the difference between that, like LeBron James where he live, and the Prince George County where it might be more black people that's affluent. Like you're living maybe closer to white people. You're living where the outlook of you is different. Like since we name a rapper, it's like with J. Cole when he made a song on For Your Eyes Only about that basically my neighbors think I'm a drug dealer because there's not people that look like him or recognize him that's in that community. So that outlook is completely different than if you're around other black folk.
Yeah.
And there was some going back to statistics. You know what I mean? That's always going to be funny. But but they said like even people that make like $100,000, like black people that make $100,000, don't necessarily live around white people that make $100,000. Like a lot of that, we're still blocked out. We live by people that black folk that make $30,000. So we still live close to people that making less than us. But when you get that rich, when you get super rich, when you get LeBron rich, you move to white neighborhoods. You don't really move to black neighborhoods like that.
Let me give this example. This is a conversation I was having at work a couple of weeks back. I wish you were there to hear the conversation. Two coworkers of ours were talking about how they live in real nice areas, but they were saying that the areas that they live in, and they work with us, they were saying that the areas that they live in were all white areas. And both of them were saying how, you see Confederate flags all around their areas when you're going to the gas station, when you're going to the grocery store. And I just wanted to point that out, going back to the whole mentality of things. Um, you know, I know you want to move to something better, but if your mentality is just better but white, but you see Confederate flags, it's like, hold up, brother. I won't save too, but I don't even know if I can consider that
Yeah, I
safe.
got
I'm
you.
not trying to use an example of what you're saying, but I'm just saying, like, y'all can
No,
kind of understand what
no,
I'm.
that is complete. I understand what you're saying. That would be crazy. That would be like madness to see something like that. I mean, just like openly, like
Yeah,
just like that would be
And
madness.
and
Not saying that at
that
all.
makes
Like that's not safe either.
yeah, no. I
Yeah.
take it that way, and I question the notion. I said, hold
and
up, you
that
got
makes me think that their mentality is all because that means you just equate better to white. You know what I mean?
exactly.
That's really all you're thinking about there.
Yeah,
That's
but
what I told
it's
him. I said, hold on, you got families, and the places that you live are an hour to 2 hours away from here. What happens when it's a safety issue with your family and something is going on with these Confederate flag Trump supporters in your neighborhood? The separation in mentality and ideology once again.
again, these are the options. These are the choices that are presented before us in this country. And again, if I had to do it all over again, I'd make similar the same decision. Yeah, some things I'd change, but the idea to relocate, um, I would definitely do it again. And continue. Like I was way up here, in PA, traveling all the way down to Brooklyn to do these little workshops when I was doing that Maru Strategies, not for profit, the leadership development program. I mean, it it was tough, you know what I'm saying? But you know, it's what I wanted to do, you know what I mean? And that's a sacrifice you got to make. You know, we did it for however long we did it, but I think that's the blueprint. Someone asked me, I'm like, yeah, man. Especially if you're getting heat, especially if there's issues. I see people talk about stick it out no matter what. Fuck that. If there's a threat, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would you even? The smart thing to do would, like I said, to make that move because they'll resent you, man. Eventually, they'll resent you, man.
I know if I ever make the kind of money that I think I'll make, I'm going to live near nobody, black or white. Like I'm gonna see y'all from a mile away. I'm gonna see y'all coming. You know what I mean? Nobody's going nowhere.
That's a
That's
good
it.
decision, man. That's a good choice, man, to do something like that. One or the other, man. But so where were we, man? We were talking about we were done with the abortion situation, right? Where I went
Yeah.
through that, and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get it all together, and we moved on to the topic we were talking about. Now what we have left, was anything left? We talked about we get did we
Well, I mean,
get
I guess we could bring some later on. We didn't really dig that deep into black fatherhood, but I think
Yeah.
that's probably better for another conversation.
okay, okay.
And also drugs in the young generation, the whole pill popping generation that's going on now. The pill popping generation.
All right. For some reason, man, I've been feeling like, man, every generation just has its own shit. You know what I'm saying? And
I kind
we're
of, I
going to
kind of,
survive either way. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? It just seems, because when I think about when you were young and the shit. I remember when how old are you, Anye? I don't even if I know. I'm 38, brother.
I'm
Okay,
34.
so you know about the sagging pant era, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember this shit these old motherfuckers used to say to me when cause like I was 14,
You
15.
you recording right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like 14, 15, 16, and we sagging pants and shit. And I remember how they used to be, how they used to talk, and how we used to look at them. Like they was just like, yeah, whatever. But you know, that was just something specific to our generation. Well, then I thought it continued on, and now they threw some extra shit to it, skinny the jeans and put the chains on the motherfuckers for a little while or whatever. But for some reason, I just been thinking that every generation has its own shit, man, and it's nothing for us to get startled about. We've been here generation after generation, and there's going to be more and more shit, and there's going to be more and more generations. I don't know, man. Not to say that it's not
I
something.
feel like after the crack era, it doesn't get much worse. I think crack is probably the only era I could personally think of in my mind that fucked up a lot of communities. Overall though, like the other shit, like Molly, I remember going. I never took ecstasy, but I know motherfuckers around me that took ecstasy. I remember living in DC. Motherfucker, they used to have this thing called boat, which I don't know if everybody know what that is, but basically they used to dip cigarettes in embalming fluid and smoke them shits.
Oh,
This is back in
What does it
2000,
call it?
yeah.
and they call it boat. They had different names, but they used to call it like love boat.
And that was a DC thing, you say? A DC thing?
Yeah, it was wet. Sometimes it was called like
Oh,
wet or some shit
oh,
like that. They had different names for it.
what's that? The what they call that on the West Coast, man? That's not Sherm and shit. That's not the same shit as Sherm,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, all right. Now I got. All right, continue. I'm sorry. I just was.
And I used to see motherfuckers fucked up on that. But yeah, I mean, there's always been like levels of high drug abuse and a lot of that shit. I
But but
think
well,
I
but
think
the
for
want to ask Dan, was it ever with the kids like it is now? There's high drug use with the young kids now.
Yeah.
I want to say yeah. I started like for me, I started smoking and drinking at probably 12, 13. Like I had my beer and a blunt at the same time when I was like 13 years old.
No. And let's keep that in context because remember, originally what I'm saying was that things got worse. Marijuana and beer and this pill popping generation and powder, teenagers on these heavy pills and powder. That's a big difference between marijuana and beer to me.
I mean, I would agree, but I mean, I would have to probably dig into that because I don't hang out with that many young folk, like that young. You know what I mean? Where I could tell you. So I can't give you any like I only know one person who was functional. You know what I mean? And I know he did some shit like he did hallucinogenics and some other stuff. And he didn't seem that different from a normal kid to me. Like he, you know what I mean? So I would probably have to really, but I'm kind of up to this point still kind of agree a little bit with Greg for the fact that I think, um, and not saying is that there's not levels to it, but I feel like as kids, that's something that you do. Especially when you hit the teenage years, like you start losing some of that inhibition. Like you start kind of going crazy and do what your peoples do. So if your peoples out there, they popping pills, you gonna pop pills with them. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, but see, but smoking weed and popping pills, oh, those are two totally different things. And I
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
say, pills shouldn't be something that we just doing, that we're just experiencing. Back in the 80s in the Black community, I used to see adults walking around as zombies off of that crack. Now in the Black community, you have children walking around like zombies off of these pills all over the place. I see it every day in the Black community.
Um, man,
And go,
I guess
go
what
back
we,
to
I
your point.
guess, see, here's the thing. This is where the statistic would come in, right? Because now, I mean, you know, we can say, yeah, the pills have a worse lasting effect, I guess, on the body, right? Is that's what you're saying when you say worse? Like because all right, but it,
We have rappers committing suicide that are hooked on these pills. I never know of a rapper in the 80s, 90s commit suicide off of weed.
I
what
mean, but yeah,
what I'm saying,
that I wouldn't go by
what I'm
that either
saying is
because
what I'm
I mean, if we talk about anyway, go ahead,
no,
Jay.
I mean, it's what I'm saying is man, it's like again, when I say each generation has its own shit, right? Does it yeah, I ain't man, because when because how I don't want
well,
to
well,
use
let me jump
because
in
death
because
because
I feel like when Anya brought up the suicide thing, it made me think about it a little bit differently. Because especially when we talk about the younger generation, to me, it was always a thing where I'm not one to quick to jump on and say this generation is worse. Especially since a lot of it is because of us, the generation before them. You know what I mean? Because that stuff kind of trickles down. But like when I think about the suicide thing, it kind of feel like I don't know if one causes another. But I'm gonna say there's probably something mixed in between. There's something probably with the environment overall that is pushing the kid to be depressed enough to commit suicide and also um not clear enough to start popping these pills. You know what I mean? Where again, I don't know the statistics either about the drug use,
is
and I can't say I've been around people with the drug use, but I feel like I can't make that correlation and say that is any different from growing up. Because like I said, like I've seen people on boat when I was young, when I was in DC in 2000, and I've seen people. There was one guy I saw 5 minutes. It took him to cross the street because this nigga couldn't get his foot in order. Like he kept on going back and forth with one foot because his whole perception was up. You know what I mean? I think about like even like if we're talking about people that died, like people that died off of lean, like the whole school era. You know what I mean? People that died off of that. Like these are things that kind of have always been like the black community and drugs has always been fucked up. And again, I don't put anything above the crack era because the crack itself, heroin itself and crack itself, I think is the most dangerous drugs that there is to human beings. And meth, but black people don't do meth as much as far as I know. Um, you know that these other drugs, I kind of have to know more about the drugs itself. And I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying like I don't know the effects of these drugs. I think some are. I agree that they might be higher than weed, and there might be some lasting effect. But I know people who have took, like I said, ecstasy, who have done both, who are still functional. You know what I mean? That who still are able to live past those years where they used to do it heavy as a teenager and grew up, got a little bit more mature, got a little bit more rational, and were able to do it. And a lot of that might have just been experience that they went through. So I'm kind of there with it until I find out more.
I'm like,
I would just say, we're in the infancy stages of the heavy pill popping era with these Percocets, these Mollies, and all this old nonsense. So, I mean, just like a lot of our community said in the early crack days, they just thought, hey, it's just another drug like heroin, like cocaine. And it wasn't until 20 years after that they seen the true devastation that it did to the community. So we won't really know the true effects of all of this pill pop generation until years down the line.
Yeah.
But another
That's
point
fair.
I
That's
wanted
fair.
to point to was a point that G made. The trends of specific areas. Some trends are just trendy. It's just what the young people do for fun. But some trends are bigger than just trends, and it trickles down to being very detrimental to the culture. Maybe I wasn't around, but those bell bottom pants. From what I heard, it was just real trendy. It was a part of the whole dance culture, the club culture. But when we go to the 90s and we talk about the baggy clothes era, speaking specifically, I don't know how it was in the areas y'all grew up in, but in LA, you know, it wasn't just about the clothes because it was a whole swag that came with the clothes. It was a lifestyle that came with the clothes. And a lot of kids in our community started to mimic what they saw with the rappers. Like, hold on, not only do I just want to dress like this, but I want to bang just like them. So that was detrimental to a lot of young brothers and sisters in our community that ended up dying from such an influence and ended up in jail from such an influence. And a lot of people would say now in the current era, where we have a lot of our kids in these skinny jeans and very feminine clothes, speaking specifically on the boys and the type of culture that follows that. A lot of our young boys are not seeing it. A lot of our young boys don't have fathers in their household to tell them, hold up, be careful with these skinny jeans. Masculine men, we don't wear these skinny jeans. A lot of them have women in the household. I'm not knocking the single mothers out there that are allowing this, and certain types of behaviors are following such that again are not conducive to the black community and in the long term can be very detrimental.
okay, so all right, I want to just take the specifics of the drugs out of it for a minute. Like, I don't want to say Molly, I don't want to say weed, I don't want to say crack, meth, whatever. Um, because the point I was trying to make is like each generation has its own little trends and shit. Um, be it as it may, whatever trend it is, or whatever drug of choice, or whatever it is, do we still graduate the same lawyers, the same amount of doctors? Do we still produce the same amount of entrepreneurs, even with all of the shit going on in that generation? Yeah. Move on to the next generation. It's not weed. It's. I mean, it's not. What's the shit they was doing in the 70s?
LSD.
LSD.
I
Fine.
don't know.
So if they was doing LSD, did they graduate the same doctors, lawyers, or at that time, were they putting out the same plumbers or whatever the field? My point is, even with that negativity, does society still move on? And and and
Whoa,
and
but don't skip over the 80s from what Dane said. How did the crack era, did that still graduate the same amount of lawyers and doctors and teachers?
But see, then you gotta put the mass incarceration element in. You take out the mass
Yep.
incarceration element, which you can't.
Sure.
But it's
Sure.
because of
True.
the
True.
mass
Yeah.
incarceration is what changed it. Because back to the trendy thing, the pill shit might disappear and be replaced with something else, right? During the crack era, you know, and I know personally, I family members, you know what I'm saying, that are going through, that struggle. Um, the problem is you get on that, very addictive. Let's say, let's say you dodge jail. Let's say you dodge prison. You know what I mean? You don't get hooked up. Now the other struggle is staying off the drug, staying off the shit. Um, Crack is it like non-existent now, like non-existent, but it's not like one of these things that is super duper popular like it was before, right? So it would just disappear, eventually. But you put in the mass incarceration side of things. Once you get out of prison, like your record is tarnished. You know what I'm saying? You can't get a fucking job, you ain't a place to live, right? So then you go and you reach back into trying to survive and hustle here, hustle there, and then there's the drug available to start the cycle all over again. So I think that mass incarceration, that system
Yeah.
that's playing in there is what
And, and I also think with that we kind of add that to the weed as well, because weed people were getting incarcerated a lot for weed itself
right.
with the mass incarceration. So that kind of makes me think differently about the weed aspect, which even though it might not physically have been
I
dangerous, it
you
caused a lot of people to be taken off the
you don't,
streets and put in these
but
prisons.
that's, I mean, you do we agree that shit is starting to change, like with the legalization of marijuana and shit, the whole idea of this the three strikes you're out,
I
the
think
whole privatizing of
well, I mean,
prisons and
right now, federally is not, because you have just Sessions in there who still is trying to go back to the mandatory sentencing and these harsh practices and harsh sentencing. So that's the only thing. Federally is not. I think the stigma is being taken away, where eventually we get to that point. But right now, because of who's in the administration, it's kind of going backwards slightly.
mm, well, I mean, I just think that in this country there is, because the cap has been taken off of all the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? The mass incarceration, the whole, the plans with the wars on drugs, and all that other shit. And we're starting to see that it was a plan. It was a system. You know what I'm saying? I just don't think that it can be maintained the same way at the same level that it was in the 80s. You can't maintain that shit now. You know what I mean? It's just society's not going to allow for it, not in that way. Um,
I mean, and this goes back to a point from part one that I think Dane made. Things just transform into other things that are going to attack our community. Again, like I said in part one, we're dealing with more elements attacking our community now more than ever before, and that's what makes things worse. Especially because we don't have a game plan to defend ourselves from these things. We're just being hit, and we're always reactionary to these things. We're analyzing it always after the fact and never saying, you know what could be next, and what are the things that we need to do to be proactive to protect ourselves from such.
well, first things first, own something. I'm telling you, man, ownership is the key to that shit, fellas. Ownership is the
Mhm.
key to it. That's my answer to all of it. And anyone who doesn't agree, I don't think they've tried it. I promise you. They didn't try to own something. Once I don't give a fuck when I don't care what it is, though. When it's yours, different type of feeling, man. And then you want to own something else, and then something else. And next, you got three, four different assets. Your fucking net wealth is somewhere you didn't realize it was gonna go, just because you started embracing the idea of owning something, man. Own it, own it, own it, own it, own it, own it, man. Um, I preach that shit till the cows come home, man. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna have to. And again, doing it this way is not easy. Again, it's not easy. But going to, all right, y'all work 10-hour days or 8-hour days?
Hours.
Um, hey,
Okay,
now
the 8 hour. I remember that they
I
had that
was
10-hour shit. Um,
I mean, they still got him, but I don't know.
Not for long.
Is it
Not
is
for
it
long. 3 years.
is it an easy day? Is it an easy day? Is what I'm saying. It's not an easy day. You know what I'm saying? So why not try to not have an easy day with your own shit? You feel what I'm saying? It's not an easy fucking day. I don't tell anybody that it's easy. You know what I mean? But it's mine. This shit belong to me, and I can say that, and no one can take it from me, man. Am I giving this shit a outro? I didn't know. Well, we was just gonna end.
Let me throw one last thing
Um,
in.
I have no
I didn't
idea.
know. I
I
didn't
would,
know.
but
I know. I was just
yeah.
asking. You know, go ahead. Say that last. What you was gonna get ready to say. I just didn't know.
No, what I'm gonna say is some of the solutions that we did point to. It's going to be a long, hard road that we're going to all have to sacrifice to get to a lot of these solutions. Whether the solution is for a lot of us to become entrepreneurs, whether the solutions are for us to become economically empowered by supporting each other, whether we get on survival thing and understand that survival is key, whether we understand the power behind political power within our communities and shifting our communities in that manner, and whether we just get on the same page, even spiritually. It's gonna be work. It's gonna be work to get to these solutions. You know, it's not gonna be that microwave mentality that we in. So get out of that shit. Get ready to, put some minds together and put in the work that needs to be done.
You got work, man. Especially if you want to live comfortable in this country, man. You don't have to work at it. Ain't nobody giving you shit out here, man. Especially not us. Anyway, fellas, I'm good with that, man.